Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Julius. Welcome to the exciting world of multifamily Meetup, hosted by XSITE Capital. I am the CEO co-founder, and with me and hosting today is Mr. Tenny, our co-founder and Director of Acquisitions, and Mr. Leslie Awesome, our co-founder and Director of Operations. We also have co-hosting with us today our Investor Relations Associate, Mr. Braden Hyde, and we look forward to a fantastic evening with our incredible visitor and presenter, Mr. Jason Yarusi. Jason is the founder of Yarusi Holdings with his wife, Pili, and they have acquired over $180 million in real estate across 1,500 multifamily units since 2017. Their firm repositions properties through operational efficiencies, moderate to extensive renovations, and complete rebranding. Jason also hosts the Multifamily Life podcast, which provides actionable contents and tools to build and strengthen your multifamily business. Jason is the founder of the New Jersey Multifamily Life Club with over 2,000 members that focuses on real estate syndications and multifamily investing, and also trains others in success formulas by buying apartment buildings. Jason has also started and exited multiple businesses in the past 15 years, and his family construction business has a niche industry position in raising and moving structures. So the company has also elevated over 2,000 homes in the past 7 years alone. And beyond real estate, Jason spends time with his wife, Pili, and 3 young kids, Luke, Lily, and Leo. Jason is also an avid CrossFitter and now lives in Tennessee. And please, let's welcome Jason with an exciting welcome. So without further ado, please take it away, sir. Jason. Oh man, I think Jason is just frozen now. What a perfect time to freeze. Okay, there you go, Jason. Oh, I think it's frozen again. Jason?
I can hear you, Dr. Oni. I think we may have lost him for a sec.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. I thought maybe it was me that was frozen.
Oh, you're good.
Well, okay, great. Beautiful. Oh, we'll just wait a little bit for Jason to join us. In the meantime, we could just, do you want to play our video? For, yeah, sure. We could fill up the space while Jason fixes his internet. Awesome. Oh, there goes Jason. Thank you, Jason. Welcome back.
Yeah,
So-
I think someone in the other room had shut off our Wi-Fi by mistake, shutting a switch off. So ideal timing as it always goes, but that's part of the ins and outs of the daily habits here. So excited to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Please take it away. Thank you so much for joining us.
Perfect. Cool. Well, I got a grand introduction before I cut out by the team here from XSITE. So I super appreciate you guys inviting me to join you and your group tonight to talk about really mind over matter when going out there to get where you are to where you want to be, specifically here in multifamily. And I'm going to jump in here and get a presentation going. And, these are slides here that we can touch on and go forward. But again, my name is Jason Yarusi. We're going to talk about mind over matter to scale big with multifamily and a real life case study. In the background, because I just jumped rooms, you will hear my bulldog Jill. Don't let her engage you, but if you hear some huffing and puffing, that is her. I already got a great introduction from you guys, but myself and my wife, we started Yarusi Holdings back in 2016, 2017, because we were looking for that option in our life to transition from where we were to where we wanted to be. My wife and myself, we met as bartenders in New York City. And that wasn't so long ago. We met bartending in New York City, running bars, running restaurants. I opened a brewery, sold a brewery, opened some restaurants. And it was that part of life where we thought this was the pace of our life until we quickly realized that we were in a service business. It was directly running us. And it took Hurricane Sandy to happen on the East Coast, which decimated hundreds of thousands of homes, for my wife and myself, and she was my girlfriend at the time, to say, well, maybe we should move to New Jersey and help dad. My dad had a family construction business. We talked about it here a little bit in the introduction, where he lifts and moves homes, basically takes structures and picks them up. A lot of this for flood reasons. And my brother was working for me at the time, Peely, now my wife, right? We moved out to New Jersey to help dad with his business. And it was a great time to go out there and help dad with the goal in his life. He was going from about 12 of these projects a year to, we ended up at the premise and the climax of working about 300 projects a year doing this. But we learned that we had just traded doing one service business where, you basically are working for tips, right? If you really want to put it into those terms, to going out there doing construction where you have to do to get, right? If you don't show up, there's no payment, there's no project, there's no movement. And it was that point in time when Peely was pregnant with our first kiddo, that we were understanding if we wanted to control our day, we had to look for a different avenue. So we kept asking ourselves, what else is there? And the one thing that kept coming in front of us was this vast world of this word real estate. We kept saying real estate. What is it of real estate that could help us lead to that direction? So we thought we would take on what seemed to be logical. Peely, here she is, pregnant, right? Goes out to get a real estate license. Myself, we started flipping houses, wholesaling houses, doing Airbnbs. And sure, here we are in the real estate space, but we've now gone from active as bartenders, restaurant owners, brewery owners, active in the construction world. And now here we are active in another spot of real estate, right? Because we are the ones showing up, having to do the work, having to put forward the process. And again, we're not getting to our goal. We're actually going further away from our goal, because our goal in fact itself was to find time back where we can control our day, where if I wanted to take the day off to go hang out with my kids or hang out and just change up the pace of my day, I could do that. And everything we were doing was leading ourselves away from that. Well, it took Peely and myself to come upon someone who was investing out of state. And at the time, they were investing in small rental properties, so single families. And that was that first introduction to just out of state investing. So we dove in with that, and instead of investing in single families, we thought we were doing something that actually it was the road to where we wanted to go, but we thought it was this big monumental moment where we started investing in 2 and 3 units, right? Because we thought that was going to give us the scale. And what we learned quickly is that this was great, because no longer could we be the piece of the puzzle that was stopping all the operations, but we could put together teams like we had done in spaces of opening businesses before, put teams in the position that they could help us, right? So we found properties, we found contractors, we got them fixed up, found management partners, empowered them to go out there and lease the properties, and lo and behold, checks started showing up. right? And that was that first moment where we saw that we could empower the action of others to help on a bigger scale. Yet it wasn't going to accomplish this mission, right? Because the economies of scale wasn't going to get there. It wasn't going to give us that position to move the needle enough to get back our time, to get back our day. So we said, what else is there? We kept asking that question until we constantly were able to put forward the power position of where we wanted to go. So as you think about it in your day, right, many times we think that the information we have is all that there is. However, if you keep asking that question of, okay, this is not where I want to be. What question do I need to ask to get the answer that's going to put me in the power position? Most of the time, we seek out the answer without actually thinking about the logical question to get us there. And I've realized every time my shortcomings have been because I haven't learned good questions to get me to better answers. So we ended up selling off all those small properties because we came across large multifamily, a lot of what's talked about here. And that was that aha moment that we would be able to put everything together into one place and accomplish our goals. So we sold off those properties, those 2 and 3 units, and we ended up going from that first 3 unit into a 94 unit. And that was back in May of 2017. And that was the transition to where we are today. And the bio is a little short. We're right about that 2,000 unit mark, about 95% of in-place multifamily, the other 5% of development. And a lot of that started with that first piece and just constantly understanding that the goal is not always the outcome. The goal is a mile marker, but the goal, every time you get to the goal, it's one of those points in life where you're at the goal. But when you get to the goal, you don't stop. Life doesn't stop. You keep pushing forward to that next goal. And the more we focus on the goal, the more disappointment that comes in our life because the goal seems to be that evolution of something we want. However, we can focus on the steps we take along the path. We find that gives us all the answers and all the success we want, right? If we can't enjoy the road to get there, then ultimately when we get to the goal, it's not going to give us the purpose that we're looking for. So as we said, he who has their why to live for can bear almost anyhow. And for us, it was really controlling our time with our kids. There's so many points in our life here that we let life run us and we get on a path and then we look back and say, how did that just happen? How did a decade go by? And we can all think about this in all points where we get accustomed to life, we get comfortable in life, comfortable in the way the day goes. And we can't understand why we're not accomplishing what we want because we've gotten comfortable with what's been given to us. And sometimes it's even the simple fact is that we get comfortable being uncomfortable. We can get comfortable being happy in a life because it's easier to go there each day, to go to maybe a job that we don't like or go to, sit in traffic each day because the risk is less than us in our minds thinking about this big goal that we could go after because we can't see ourselves going to it because we haven't thought through it. So as you go through in your life, you have to take the step and go all in. And that's that first step. We always want the laid out perfect plan. But I'm sure you can talk to Dr. Julius, you can talk to the other teams, Tenny, and they can tell you that the plan they had has changed and has adapted because each action step they've taken has produced a different result that wasn't expected. But the encompassing goal was they had the larger idea, they had the larger vision, they had the place that they wanted to go. And they had to take action to understand the steps they need to get there. So many times in life, we want to build that perfect roadmap and we'll waste years hoping for that perfect plan to show up for us. But the second we start, it hits us that we're completely off base. And either we stop right there or we have to power through. But if you can get yourself out of the gate today to take that first step, what's the worst thing that happens? You've taken a step and ideally, maybe you're on the right direction or maybe you're in the wrong direction. At least you've eliminated that off your path. So as you push forward, you can continue to take massive action. But no one has ever thought their way to success. We've taken action, learned better questions, and received better answers. So as we go forward through this message tonight, understand that there's so much for each of us to do. I mean, we are the only species that can not live up to our potential. And it's because we put ourselves in a position here where we constantly outthink our results, right? It's said that in so many times that we think of all the bad things that can happen in our life and really they rarely do. And as you think about where you want to go, whether it be in the commercial real estate or any goal in your mind, any goal in your life, it's that role that's going to either keep you where you are or put you in a place to get where you want to be. So be ready to do the work that's going to change you. And for us, it was to provide financial freedom for my family, for generations to come, and hundreds around us. And that's been some of the glory to be able to come and talk to groups like this, is that it's put us in a position to say, this is where we were. And we were completely different people then. And we made the decision, and we didn't know what that was going to be, but we knew what we wanted. We wanted to be able to be in a position to surround ourselves and to teach our kids, and to be in a position that we could choose our day with our kids. And we didn't know how that road was going to get there. We didn't know how that road was going to come through, or how that road was going to show up. But each step we've taken has making that journey clearer and clearer. And as we get to those goals, we move those goals out, just like we've talked about. But we spend too much time thinking about what we don't have, instead of really taking in what we do have and all of the benefits that we can put forward in our place, right? So as we continue, you have to jump in. This is a life decision, right? No one's going to show up and just provide this to you. So it's a life decision, and the small steps you take each day account for massive growth. I think it's said that if you can compound and improve 1% a day, just 1% a day, that's something like 3,000% of improvement over the course of the year. And if you can just think about that in a small way, 1% seems like nothing, because we're always wanting to jump and make these massive leaps from where we are. Today, I'm going to spend 15 hours learning about commercial real estate, but we never find the time to do that. But if you could just take 20 minutes or during a call like this, one time a week, right? Those steps in place here where you can continue to build and build and build, that is what you want and what you need to get to where you want. And trust me, you have to surround yourself with others that have the same goals, the same ambitions, because your immediate people that are surrounding you right now, if you're not in the place you want to be, most notably the people around you probably don't understand where you want to go or why you want to go there yet. Maybe once you get there, or once you get in the journey, they'll understand why you're doing this. But you're going to get the resistance because it's different than what they're used to. It's different than who you were trying to be before, who you thought you were before. So as you look at where you want to be, it's going to be continual reinforcement to yourself of why you want to get there. So many times in life, we think it's the external forces that keep us where we are, but in fact, it's really our mind. It's the thoughts we have each and every day when we wake up that we have to get by. It's setting our mind right, setting our time right, so we can push forward to our goals. Rarely is it the outside forces that keep us where we are. There's rarely things that impact you that you can't get past. And when you can set your mind right each and every day to go from where you want to where you want to be, it's everything you need to show up and actually achieve those goals. And one of the biggest things for us has been just setting up our morning routines. We've done this proactively day in and day out, is that I've realized I can't control much. There's not many things I can control out there in the world, but I can control how I show up and how I react to things and how I interact with things. So I get up early. I get up at 4:32 a.m. and 4:321, I get up. It's the first choice I make of the day. I get out of bed, I drink a glass of water, I have coffee, I meditate, I work out. And I've done that religiously because it's what I can control. I can make those choices to control that. And I can do that each and every day. So as I get into my day and I get into these points where things don't go right? The power gets shut off and the Wi-Fi or other things that happens, well, I've already controlled the day here, that I can take action when those moments come up because I've already created my wins in the morning. So for me, that's how I've shown up. I've shown up to be consistent. I've shown up to be diligent, right? So as you ask yourself, how do you show up? Well, be honest with yourself. Some of this could even be how you're going to show up when you have investors. We've raised millions of dollars now, and one of the most important things you can do is show up for your investors. They may not know you, but as they learn from you or they learn about you, they want to know that you're a person of your word, that you're going to say what you do and do what you say, and you're going to show up routinely. And that's going to put you in a position to serve them as investors and serve their investments in the best light. Because as I'm sure the team here will tell you, is that we can have the perfect plan, but then there's day one. As we come out of the gate here, things are going to change. We're going to have to pivot. And you can see amazing properties be turned poorly by poor operators. And you can see mediocre properties turn massively successful by great operators. And great operations comes down to the ability to control what you control and have the mind to be able to pivot in the right direction when things are not going to perfect to plan. So if you are thinking, well, what do I need to do today to show up? It's make yourself accountable for yourself. I've found that in my life, and I've been guilty of this many times, is that we try to hold others accountable in ways that we don't hold ourselves accountable for. And that's one of the reasons that I've been so proactive in trying to set up my morning routine in a fashion that's going to put me in the best position to win, because I can't expect of others what I wouldn't do for myself. So as you look forward upon your points, it's not these big things that we need to change. It's usually these small things. It's usually the small things of taking ownership of where you are, taking responsibility for where you want to go, and then putting the pieces in place to get there. So be yourself, because everyone else is taking them. And this is a great quote. We look out today and we look at all the great things happening here, and we look at anything from Instagram to Facebook, and we see all the wins and all the journeys and all the things that are happening out there and all the glorious, magical things that are happening there. And we could have, jealousy or moments of just despair, or I couldn't do this. However, you're comparing yourself to others where in fact, it's only you that you have to show up for. It's only you that you have to represent for. It's only you that you have to answer to. And it's only you that you're going to look back in the life that you've traveled. So as you take the moments today and you say, well, where do I want to be? Don't compare it against anyone else. Ask yourself, honestly, where do I want to be in this day? Where do I want to be along this journey? Because that's going to give you the power to get where you can be and get where you want to be. So believe in you want to start and make it quantifiable. We set big goals out there that really aren't actual. I want to be a millionaire. Okay, what does that mean, right? What are the steps today that could put you in a place? It could be, I want to show up at this meetup every month, right? You can track that. I want to underwrite 2 properties a week. You can track that. I want to talk to 2 brokers, twice a week. I want to have 5 investor calls each week. Those are actionable events that you can track. Instead of looking at these big audacious goals that you can't build up the map to, put things down that you can track, put things down that you can control so you can source where your goals come up to. So part of this process is that we do not have to get to a point where we know everything. We have to get to a point where we actually can create outcomes that are based on actions. And this is one of my favorite lines. So if you keep doing what you always did, don't be surprised if you get what you always got. It's a mouthful, but that's everything to the position of where we are today, right? If we keep on the same roadmap, if we keep doing the things that have not worked for us before, we can't be surprised if we continue to be on the path for which we are right now. So choose to make it happen. If you're at this point now, it's time, right? So go beyond what you're limiting of your old story. And part of this is that we typically run either from fear or we run from failure, right? Or we run from success. And in most life, it comes down that we can sometimes easily sit there on the sidelines because we're worried about what success would look like. And we can't actually see ourselves getting there because we haven't actually been in that position. And one of the most powerful things with being in a room like this is that you can see other like-minded people succeeding. And it can put you in a position that you can see them and see the steps they've taken. And maybe a few short months, they were in a different spot in their life, or even a few short years. And as you look at the points of where you want to go in your life, ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen? And most of our lives are meant about our paths and are thinking about just everything awful, everything horrible, everything bad that can happen. And we typically give all of our energy to that. But if buying an apartment building, if something horrible can happen, then you have to give that something great thing happen too. You have to say that if something bad can happen, the 1% of bad can happen and the 1% of good can happen. And when you can start treating things like that, you find that the common ground is that most of the time it's right in the middle. And you can get away from just finding a way to sabotage every single thought you have in your life. Put yourself in a point that you can continue to win by training your mind each and every day that you deserve to be here. You deserve to be on your journey. You deserve to be on the road to the success you want, to get yourself to, in fact, where you need to be. So I want to jump here just to a little bit from good to great, right? So part of this is, why did we want to be in multifamily? Well, part of this is it offers us so many different ways that we can add value to an investment and also create the goal, which was to get back our time. We wanted cash flow. We wanted the ability to make appreciation, whether it's by the market or to force appreciation. We wanted the tax advantages. We wanted to be able to take advantage of the depreciation benefits for both ourselves and our investors. It also gives you the option for debt pay down and the economies of scale where you can leverage across hundreds of units or 50 units compared to a single family residence or a 2-family or 3-family, where you're more exposed to having a tenant base, right, move out. So as you look forward at these investments, we may say that bigger is more scary, but in fact, is it? Or does it provide us more opportunity and more ability to be able to win the day? You can benefit from the economies of team. You can grow and treat it like a business instead of something, in fact, that you can only have you as the actor. You can hire a full-time leasing person, a full-time maintenance person that can make this the best property for you and your investors. And you can leverage and scale because you can bring on investors because of just the upside potential. It can afford more returns, greater upside opportunity. And you can also help others reach their goals at the same time. It's one thing to do it ourselves, but if you can do this and help others at the same time, that's any and everything. And you can do this from 1,000 miles away. I so happen now to move to Tennessee and I have investments right down the street. However, we did this for a long time living in New Jersey. We were able to do this in markets that made financial sense for ourselves and our investors because it gave us the ability to focus on putting together a plan of action where we no longer were the pinnacle point driving the investment. We were the piece of the puzzle that was helping the investment power forward. And all of this started with just engaging, right? We got on bigger pockets. We read everything we could about apartment buildings. We started focusing on podcasts that were just about multifamily, and we found a mentor. And mentors are huge because most of the time in life, we need that person to just give us the approval that we can do it. The person that can just show up and give us that strength, right? To say that you can do this and to fill in those little gaps. We're all here tonight. We know we want to buy a large apartment building, right? We know that maybe that means we have to pick a market. We have to put together a team. We have to talk to brokers. Maybe we have to raise money. We have to be able to underwrite the deal, right? But there's those little questions, right? It might be something about, an SEC attorney or something about closing documents, right? That are those little in-betweens that usually get lost on the sideline and can sometimes be things that keep us off our path from where we want to go. Mentorship can be huge because it's other people that have done this successfully that you can see the process they've done, see the map and see the roadmap they've taken and follow that lane to where you are, to where you want to go. So here's some steps in this first 94 unit. We closed this in May of 2017. It's a $2.3 million purchase price. Tremendous buy for the time, right? Had value add, operational upside, below market rents, below market occupancy. It was a great building. The owner had passed away. He was in his 90s. The kids had purchased the building. They were now in their 50s and 60s, and they were living out of state. And they just saw this as a huge pain. They had a leasing person there that they could not collect rent payments, right? So they had to take them across town to an office. They were having collection office issues. They were about 88% occupied, when in fact, all the surrounding buildings were same model, same vintage buildings. They were about 100% occupied, and they were all charging about $100 to $125 at higher rents for the same offering. And the reason for that is that they weren't empowering the staff there to be put in the best position to empower the opportunity. So we had below market rents, below market occupancy. They had extremely high expenses. They had 3 maintenance people on for a 94 unit that were just sitting around here. And we were able to go in there and capitalize on this. They weren't charging proper application fees. They weren't charging pet fees. They had 2 laundry rooms, both which are down. So we were able to put both of those laundry rooms back on. We put on a cable contract on the property, and that gave us the opportunity to go forward to add additional revenue streams. We came in here and added on, put in a proper staff. We started to control expenses. We put on a water program here to change out all the toilets, to cut down our water bill. We went through all the units, corrected any leaks we had on there, changed out faucets and shower heads with aerators, and it was able to cut our water bill down substantially. So little parts like this allowed us to be able to take action on the property without having to do too much. Went in there and put in just a basic marketing package, leased out all of the available units, and it gave us the opportunity to really get active on a product by making small changes. Because what we found across, close to 2,000 units now is that most of the time it's inefficiencies either on the management side or the building side, but it's a combination of both. And if you can go in there and create and fulfill a better product and make this a better place to live for tenants, you ultimately can't lose. Because if you make this a better place for tenants to live, they will be willing to pay more. And when they pay more, of course, that will trend down to more revenue for the property, for a bigger income line at the bottom, for better returns for you and your investors. So as you think forward for this, the process is simple. Create value, make it a better place to live, make this a community here, and it will serve not only you, not only the tenant base, but also your investors. So we raised $700,000 for this first deal. And how we did that is we actually set up a mock deal. As we said, we knew where we wanted to go. We knew we wanted to buy Class B, Class C buildings in Louisville, Kentucky. We knew we wanted to focus on apartment buildings. We knew we wanted to focus on a 75 to 100 unit building. And we were going to focus in specific working class areas, which were the South and Southeast Louisville. So we actually set up this mock deal because this was our first time doing it. We hadn't raised money for this before. We had done it in other types of businesses, the bar world. However, we hadn't done this in the apartment world. So going out to our investor base, we knew we had to educate them and empower them to be able to make good decisions about whether or not this is a viable choice for them. Now, we spoke earlier, why is multifamily great? Cash flow, appreciation, depreciation, debt pay down, tax advantages, right? It has all those potentials. But to an investor like you and me, this may be the first time you're hearing of this. They may think that these opportunities are only for large REITs or big equity groups, right? So we were able to bring a sheet to them prior to finding this deal months before, just talking to them about what we were going to do, what we wanted to do. And as I talked earlier about the power of showing up and the power of having a track record of committing and doing, well, they did not know us from the real estate space, but they know that we had shown up before. So we were able to engage a lot of interest and a lot of commitments, although not actual money in our account, but soft commitments of interest to help us and empower us to know that when the time came, when we were able to find this deal, that we had already created a stable set of retail investors. So when we did, in fact, find this deal, we basically raised this money in a day because we had already prepared our investor base to know what we would be looking for. So this was a fun one for us. We effectively transitioned management. It says here, just a little bit over, we actually turned about 65 of the 94 units. We completed really all of our big repairs, 6 and 12-month repairs in less than 5 months. We created a great tenant referral program. We found that if we brought tenants in and they referred other tenants, it actually helped us in the revenue because as you know, or as you can know from operations, your biggest expense, of course, is the downtime for which your unit is offline and your renovation costs. So if we keep good tenants in there and have them bring other good tenants there, it was going to continue to help us improve the revenue month in and month out. We implemented a move-in fee instead of a security deposit. And I talked about we installed a water savings plan, which in correcting leaks cut our water bill down by almost 30%. And based on the cap at that time, they created about a $325,000 of value by just changing out toilets. In fact, instituted pet fees. We ended up helping a neighboring building that was owned by the city. We allowed them to use one of our vacant units for a stakeout, and they ended up arresting a bunch of bad actors on the neighboring building. What was great about this is that this wasn't an area that had a lot of crime, but because this building was not being managed well by the city, it was really creating a lot of havoc for our tenant base because they were not feeling safe. Right. So we could have just thrown our hands up in that, but we offered up to keep a unit offline so they could do a stakeout for a few weeks, able to arrest some of the bad actors that were there. And it created better community to get back to this ultimate goal of a better place to live. put a laundry contract onto the building. We increased rents well above pro forma. And then after year one, we refinanced, returned about 75% of capital over to investors well ahead of schedule. And we ended up selling this building just about 2 years out here. So it really was a point here that was, if you were to say a decade ago, that I was going to buy apartment buildings when we were bartending, it would have been something that was completely out of line. And it sounds like a big jump to go from a 3-unit to a 94 unit. But in fact, it was, a decade of us training our mind and making choices that ultimately showed us that we didn't want to be there, to find a better choice to make. And each time, instead of saying, oh man, woe was me, we said, well, what can we learn from this? And we use that to continue to push forward to where we want to go. And we continue to do that today. One of our reasons to move down to Nashville is we wanted to just change the setting and put ourselves in a different place, right? So we've come to Nashville now. We have a lot of construction experience, as noted before. So this is now giving us the opportunity to be more proactive in development projects here. So as you continue to look forward, you look at what can you learn and what can you use from your road ahead? And where do you need to go to put yourself in the best position to win, like it is sitting here at a meetup like this tonight. So this is everything about myself, our company. Get a special report, how to become financially independent with apartment buildings. If you want to scan this QR code, feel free to contact us here if you want at info@Yarusi Holdings. And I know there's a bunch of questions up here, but I'll stop the sharing right now and see if there's anything specific I can talk to here. So from that fact, I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if anything you want to come up there. There you are. Leslie, go ahead.
I have a question. You talked about the why power earlier on in the talk, and I believe in the power of the why and how that motivates you to move forward. For some people that are getting early in the journey and struggling figuring out what their why is, what kind of advice what kind of recommendation would you give to people to figure out what that driving force is for them that will get them moving forward?
A why can be anything, and sometimes it can be used too much to a disadvantage, right? Well, I can't figure out my why, so I'm not going to do anything. But most of the time, you have to figure out what you want and then ask yourself 7 times why, right? It could be anything. You could be like, I want a Lamborghini. Well, why? Well, because I like how it looks. Well, why? Because if I got in that car, it would make me feel powerful. Okay, why? Because when I was little, I was at a gas station. I saw someone come up here, and he was in a Lamborghini, and it was awesome. Well, why? Well, because my dad was with me at the time, and my dad was so engaged and so enthralled by that. I could just see how happy my dad was to see someone else in that car and how much he wished for that, and I want to buy that car for him. Right. And so if you think about the power of something as simple as that, right, if we just stopped at the first part, I want to buy a Lamborghini, right, that could be your first why. But why? Well, my dad's always wanted that car, and maybe he passed, and that was his vision, that he always admired that car and loved for that day and just wished for the greatest sky that he could one day get to that car. And for me, having that car would be something I could do for not only myself, but for my dad, right? And so that could be how you can use your why, is just to understand the whys have a purpose in play, and the why may change, right? Why you do something today is not why you do something later, right? And why you something into the future. And whys can be very powerful as long as it's not a point in play that keeps you on the sideline. Sometimes it comes down that the action is what's needed. Right. We all sit here today and we say, we're here because we want to learn about multifamily, but the action is what's needed. Right. Instead of trying to figure out something and figure out that perfect plan, most of the time, that's where we get stuck. Like, we give ourselves so many points from getting started. We just keep stacking things. Well, if I got to read one more book. Okay, I read that book. Okay, well, I got to go listen to a podcast. Okay, I read that podcast. Okay, I got to go watch that show about flipping. Okay, I watched that show. Okay, and you just keep setting up these things are almost like roadblocks to get started. Where if you just do something, you'll realize if you like it or not. We have our meetup that we were running in New Jersey before we meet down there. We have a couple thousand members, and I had a guy come for a couple years that was like, I'm going to get started right after I flip a home, right? I learned everything about multifamily, but I want to flip a home first. And I don't know, 2-3 years we did this, right? And I was like, just go do something, right? And then finally he's like, okay, I'm flipping my first home and I absolutely hate it because I don't like working with contractors. I'm like, man, that was 3 years. You could have gone and done anything. You could have gone and met a flipper and joined in his job. You could have done, like all these things, right? But it was just that he had to flip this home that was in their mind, right? That part. But if you had just gone anything, right, that's 3 years. And I'm sure there's a ton of lessons to bring forward, but sometimes we put in a position that we have to do something, right? And another example to that would be, well, I need to buy a 10 unit before I buy a 100 unit. Okay, well, why, right? Well, is it this a mental thing or is there some reason? Is this a monetary thing, right? Because to me, that's like equating, like, I want to go ride 100 miles, so I better learn to swim, right? There's no equation there, but sometimes we're telling ourselves something when in fact it has no relation, right? Okay, if I have to do that first one because now that would be my stepping stool to get to that next piece of the puzzle there, right? So as we look at our why, we have to put in place is that, okay, here's where we are today. Let's take that for what it is. Let's not worry about, the fact of that, what could happen out there in the universe, but let's just look at where we want to go. And if we want to buy a multifamily property, okay, what's that first step we can take? And then check it off and get a win. And it might be coming to, meet up like this here tonight, learning from you guys. Okay, now they take from something from you tonight. Okay, great. I like that. What can I do with that tomorrow to build on it tomorrow, to take that next step? We get caught in that social media world where we really want these big wins and want them to happen in a day, but we don't realize that small steps daily, 30, 60, 90, 120 days, you can do so much. But it's us getting disappointed in ourselves because today we're not a millionaire, or tomorrow we haven't, brought up 500 unit property, right? And then we're like, oh, we're failures, and we stop.
Thank you so much. That was really powerful. Thank you, Jason.
Please go ahead, David. I think David had some comments.
Yeah, Jason,
Questions.
thank you. Excellent points. I like taking the notes. I appreciate that, sir. A question on the emerging markets and looking at demographics. There's a lot of data sets out of there. And here in Washington area, of course, with the census and all that, we've got tons of data sets, everything from police reports to employment and new corporations and traffic patterns and taxes, and so water usage. But it really is helpful to identify where there's certain moments in which an investment is suitable in terms of timing for different investors. And so I was curious as to some of your use of those resources.
So 2 things, and I'll talk on a high level and I'll talk on specific, is that data, of course, is great. However, it's the source of data that's more powerful, and when the source of data is captured, right? I was actually looking at 2 quarterly reports that were really provided by 2 of the bigger players out there, right? And the quarterly reports had a lot of contradicting facts here, but the same fact, if one was taken and actually done a month prior than the other, maybe that factor out the points. But if I just looked at one of those reports, it would have completely changed my perception of the data. Right. So you have to make sure if you're looking at the data that it's actually being captured where you can use it to your advantage. But you also can't get so stricken on data. Remember, data is only a point of time, right? This is where I'm at today in the moment. So as I go forward, I have to have a good energy to where I want to be. So if you talk about, we'll say, DC market, right? What I like about data is I want to get very specific with knowing my market, right? So we don't invest in a lot of markets. We're here in Nashville, we're down in Atlanta, I was in Louisville, right? We try to stay very market focused, because if you look at just the news overall, they act like the entire United States is reacting at the same time. Of course, at the same points, everything's being treated the same. So I look at data, I really want to be market specific, but then I want to be sub-market specific, because I want to know where I can be empowered in the submarkets to make the best choices for those investments. And that's why I don't like a shotgun approach of just investing everywhere.
No. We're very, very specific.
Right.
Even with CBRE and Collier and Millichap and the other guys, and we do the tours and walk the properties, and they inflate it by 10%. And so, yes, I like Lexington and Louisville and Asbury, for example. Just there's a couple of markets that are quite useful right now. And others might emerge in another couple of years. And like after the flood in Kentucky, there's some useful locations.
You know, you could stay in a market and never leave and win, right? And sometimes we're trying to look for these other markets, right? I was once in a room and there was a guy in one side of the room. He was from New York, and he was telling the guy from LA how lucky he was because he had all the investment opportunity. And then on the us side of the room, there's a guy from LA telling a guy from New York how lucky he was because of all the investment opportunity, right? So it's always how we see it that makes us in the position. What I'd say is that, is specifically in a points, is that the closer you are to a primary market, the more opportunity it's going to afford you. It's going to be more, of course, competition, but it's going to give you more advantages in the future. The more we go into secondary and tertiary opportunities, the more the more downside risk you'll have, right? Because of course, the investments won't carry as well. You won't have a bigger buyer pool into the future. Your tenant base is going to be more exposed, right? Right now, for these primary markets, you have a lot of run up here between, of course, the price inflation we're seeing already, and that's going to continue to carry forward. But the wage inflation is going to really where you hit. If you go into these tertiary markets right now, the wage inflation is much more affected, right, by the price of food, the price of gas, all these other things that can hit it. So if you look at that and you say, okay, how is wage inflation going to affect it here? Is that, well, we're seeing these increases in rent, right? And this is August, I think, is the first month, and it was like a 1% delta. We've seen rent come down in like 2 years, right? But in that fact, still, it only lowered 1%, so it's still rising, right? It just hasn't been the same increase that we've seen month over month for the last years. So if you think about that, if you're a person working at Walmart, right, and you're in a primary market, your hours probably aren't going to get hit too much. But if you're out in a tertiary market, maybe you'll have a 20% or 10% hit your hours right there, and it ultimately affects your pockets, right? Because you're working paycheck to paycheck. So as you look at your investments, you want to say, how are my investments exposed? Not only to the data points, but to the people that are renting from me, right? Who is my tenant base? How is my tenant base exposed? Do I have multiple employers that can keep my property winning, right? Or am I in a market that's solely responsible for, like a steel town, or there's only one enactor that if that employer has some kind of disruption, that's ultimately going to cause havoc to my investment. So I'm looking at my data points. I'm constantly saying, okay, is this an area? Why do people want to be here? Why would they want to stay? Are there jobs, right? Is this a point here where there's great schools? Is this a point here where we have something else of an outlying factor that's going to lead me to it, right? And so as you look at the data, you have to say, okay, the data is one point in time, but if you also looked at this data 6 months ago, it may tell a whole different story. So you have to be educated, but you ultimately can't be overreactionary, because if every time data comes out, so you think about COVID, right? There's people who brought right at the onset of COVID, and where everyone was, running for the hills, and they're massive winners today. Now, what they saw, some of this was blind luck, and some of this was, risk aversion, right? And some of this was just saying, okay, I know this is a good opportunity because people need a place to live, right? But if you looked at the data at that time, we were going to have mass, exodus from apartment buildings. No one's going to be able to pay, and every other point, right? So you have to use data to your advantage to know what's happening, what's the sentiment of the market, but you also can't let data push you off the cliff every time the new data set come out.
Jason, does your portfolio include senior apartments or assisted living facilities?
No, they
We
don't.
have 16,000 folks per day turning 65.
Yeah, and that's another great data point, right? And so that's and for that, yes, there's a lot of that that's going to continue to be a trend out there, right? And so it could be a focus. What I'd say is that you can focus on anything, but you can't focus on everything, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you're the point, and that's why we see it, like a lot of large companies, right? They look diversified today, but if you pick a large company, they were mainly on one highway for a while, right? Until they had a fact where that thing was just running, you couldn't knock it off the track, right? There was nothing was going to come there to get it off the track. Then they start doing all these other things. Usually, if we come up and we're in, and that's where I learned early on, and where real estate can be dangerous, is that if you go to any meetup or any part, like you could come out of there with 57 new ways to do real estate, right? And at some point, you just have to go like this and just put the blinders on and just pick your path, because you can win in every path. And it's just, which path do you want to stay on? Because you can be just everything you need to be. And so we only really moved into development when we got here to Nashville. I knew this wasn't a right play when we knew we wanted to go into development, but I wasn't going to do that from New Jersey because I was too far removed from the opportunities we want. So although we do multifamily in a few select markets, I only do development here in our backyard. It's literally, 20 miles from me. Right. And so that's a choice from where it was. But I made that decision because our multifamily track is continuing to be established. But I also have those core processes. I'm not running into multiple markets in the multifamily space either, because there's people who are going to be more powerful. Right. If I'm saying today, Charlotte, North Carolina, like I couldn't tell you all the good neighborhoods, right? I can make an educated guess and analysis of the properties, but I also want to be powerful to say this is the property and it's better than this property because it's in the good school zone or it's right where that they're putting on 50,000 jobs, right? Because I don't know that. But if it get me into the national surrounding MSAs or the Louisville's, I can make very strong decisions because I know the areas and I know the sentiment towards those areas.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much. Those were some incredible insights there. Thank you so much, Jason. Any other questions for Jason? I think Adam was asking.
I have a question.
Somebody asked a question. Melcy,
Yeah, this.
please go for it, and then I'll ask Adam's question right afterwards.
Thank you. This is Melcy Bibsha. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, and because of I had a question about the multifamily space. Because there are not that many opportunities here, I was just focusing on a couple of single-family homes. I started buying here because I moved here a year ago, but it seems like there are not that many multifamilies here. So I was just trying to ask if I should stick with the Jacksonville market here in Florida, or should I just look elsewhere? Just because I like to manage those properties, I like to be close by, or should I just create other teams elsewhere and get buy multifamily elsewhere? That was kind of my question. Just because I've been looking for a year now to find between 4 to 20 units, and I can't really find anything, honestly. And I have an idea about multifamily. I am a commercial broker and other markets too. It just seems like I can't find anything here. So that was kind of my question.
Jacksonville is a huge market, and like for New Jersey, it wasn't going to be a market for us, right? So, price per pound was too much, older properties, older utilities, non-landlord friendly state, high taxes, higher insurance, right? And it just wasn't going to be a good market for us. And that's why we started to seek other markets. Jacksonville, in fact, is a highly desirable market. So I'd say if you're looking for 420 units, I would run a list because I'm sure there's thousands of them there, right? In terms of what's there. So I'd run a list, and part of it is I would narrow down potentially my search. Maybe it's just 10 to 20 units, and maybe they're built in 1980 or newer, right? So maybe cut down, maybe you're looking at too wide of a footprint, funny enough, and that's eliminating you from finding what you want, right? It's like if I want to go buy a car, well, I'm show up, I don't know what I want to buy, but if I want to buy a blue Chevy Tahoe, I start seeing it all over the road because my reticular activator starts showing up, right? And there's not more of them on the road. In fact, I'm just seeing it more because I'm now putting it in front of my mind's eye to find it, right? So I would say that you're in a prime market, and sometimes we think that going somewhere else is really the key. However, you're going to face the same things in any market. But if you can be in a market like a Jacksonville, it's like right in your backyard there, you're kind of in a really powerful position to go out there and accomplish your goal. So I'd position yourself to get more fine-tuned for exactly what you want to find. So the second you find it, absolutely what you want. So I want to buy a 10 to 20 unit in the west side of Jacksonville, in this a couple of submarkets here, built between 1980 and 2000, right? And then see if that opportunity is actually there. And what to make it clear is that what is the result you want from this? Is there different data points? Are you looking for, is this a long-term hold or short-term hold? You're going to syndicate this, right? Do you want a certain cash on cash or a certain multiplier, right? What is the goal that you're seeking with this type of investment? Because the more specific you can get what you want, most of the time we think we eliminate opportunities, but we actually eliminate opportunities that aren't going to work for us, and we actually hone in on the right opportunity for you. So if it was me and I lived in Jacksonville, I would triple down on Jacksonville because it's got a ton of opportunity, and Florida is a fantastic market to be in, right? And it's got some of the best reports, and we'll get back to David on the data points. It's got some of the best data surrounding really just for investment and overall rent growth. So I would potentially even shrink what I'm looking for, because you remember, it's not like, you know, I have friends that like flip like 200 houses a year. Like you don't need that in multifamily. Like you could buy 1, 2, 3 buildings over the course of a couple of years and be in a great spot. So instead of thinking like there's not enough, all you need is that one, right? So if you can get very clear on what you want, find that property, get you out of the gate, right? Like, shoot, you could do a lot of damage there.
That is amazing. Thanks for those great insights. Adam McHale asked, how did you establish an investor base? And what advice do you have for someone not knowing what area to focus on? What area to focus on building their skill set, like underwriting, investor relations, etc. Thanks.
Sure. So Adam, I'll give you a couple notes in the investor database. Just make them go through your phone, go through your Facebook page, and just write down anybody who's like within your close reaction of your friends. And then do not eliminate anybody off the list, right? Sometimes we think, oh, that person won't have any money, and yet they have like, you know, they have money, right? And like, or they'd be a great investor, or they just got an inheritance, or they just, you know, fill in the blank, right? Plus, you need these people because you need to learn that me telling you everything is not what the investor wants to hear. The investor, it's all about them, right? It's all about how can we help them. So if you can put down a bunch of people on your list and go out there and say, hey, listen, I'm investing in multifamily. It's because of this cash flow, appreciation, depreciation, debt paid down, tax advantages here. Love to talk to you about why I like this and see if this is something you might be interested in. You'll find too that your immediate circle is going to be more forgiving when you're horrible at your first conversations, right? But also they're going to give you better feedback than if you're going out there to the open market and having those conversations. So your investor database is right in front of you. What you're missing here is that you need to tell everybody what you're doing. You don't need to pitch them. You just need to tell everybody why you're here tonight, why you like multifamily, why you want to be surrounded and doing multifamily investments. Because if you're excited about this, trust me, they're going to be excited about it. So we just went out to our immediate circle and just started telling them. And some was right, and some of it wasn't right, and that's fine, right? Some it wasn't right today, some it has been now since, you know, it's been a couple of years in this here. But getting out to that immediate circle, one, allowed us to understand what those questions were going to be. Because most of the time we're afraid someone's going to come up here and ask me some very detailed question on IRR, right? And it's like, no, they just want to understand why you're doing this. Like, why are you investing in Jacksonville, or why are you investing in DC? Like, why are you investing in these markets, right? Like, what are you looking for? I didn't even know you could do that, right? They more want to know about the process and how that can benefit potentially them, and how they can learn from it and be excited with you. And when you can do that, it can allow you to hone in on the questions that get asked, but also make you comfortable talking with people, because you're not asking them for money. You're providing them an opportunity that could really be beneficial for them in their future. And when you can put it in that position, right, you can say, okay, I can offer a lot of opportunity for them. So let me go on and talk to as many people as possible. And not knowing what role to focus on, you got to be honest with yourself, right? So like 2 things here, you wrote investor relations and underwriting. Simple. Are you horrible at math? Because if you are, then you probably shouldn't do underwriting, right? Like, you could just be simple yourself. Like, if you don't like talking with people, then you probably shouldn't do investor relations, right? Like it can be as simple as that. Like, what do you want to do? And then go do it, right? Because there's someone else here, like even in this room, like they say you either have time, money, knowledge, or credit, right? You typically have 1 or 2, but you typically don't have all 4, right? And so if you say, okay, what do I have? Well, there's someone else here that's missing some of these, that you can go help them, right? Because they're the opposite side. Because trust me, we think, oh man, like I'm really good at underwriting, so you know I'm not going to be of use to everybody. But there's someone out there who's like got money and been like, I can't figure out what's a good deal, right? So there's always that point of just saying, if you both have a common goal, you both want to buy multifamily properties, you both want to go out there and be able to syndicate these properties, you both want to go out there and hold these properties for 5 years, but one person's good at investor relations, another person's good at construction, another person's good with numbers, well then, okay, now you can see if it's like-minded team that can put you forward. So I would more, instead of saying, what should I do? I would just start saying, what don't I want to do? Because then you start knocking them off and you're like, okay, now I got asset management and underwriting. Well, okay, well, maybe I'll go out there and underwrite some deals and see if I like doing that, right? So that's usually the easiest way. See, this more stuff, you don't have to do everything. right? The 94 unit, my wife and I did that. Like we did that with our investors. And like, okay, so we did all the roles. Like that was good. But what did I talk about earlier on is that we were taking away our day from our family because we're doing all these things. Well, if I'm doing all the roles in a multifamily investment, ultimately I can only go so far, because if I'm underwriting, I'm not working on the due diligence. If I'm doing a due diligence, I'm not talking to investors. If I'm doing talking to the investors, I'm not working on making sure we have all the loan docs in, right? So there's always something, right, where I'm missing if I'm trying to do it all myself. So the more you can put yourself in a power position and say, this is what I want to do, the clearer it will get where you should go.
Thank you so much, Jason. This is some gems. And at some point during that answer, you actually described the genesis of XSITE Capital. So thank you.
I listen. So
yeah, but we just can't say thank you enough. We want to be respectful of your time. We want to just on behalf of everybody here, I want to say thank you. We want to just show our appreciation for all the gems, all the value you've shared with us. We certainly look forward to opportunities to working with you in the future and hopefully welcoming you back to this platform. So thank you so much, and God bless.
Thank you, everyone.
And for everybody that wants to stick around, we still have a few more minutes to just introduce yourself to the entire group. If you want to introduce yourself, your company, your interest, we are here to listen, to communicate with you, to engage with you. Jason, feel free to stick around, but if you need to go, we'd appreciate you too.
I do. I'm going to Healy's family's in town tonight, so I thank everyone for having me on. I will talk to you guys shortly.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, Jason.
Yeah. So for folks who want to introduce themselves, please join us by coming on video if you can. If not, just unmute your phone and just introduce yourself. I think David is already on video, so please you get first dibs since you're on video, David. So please go for it.
Thank you, Julius. I really appreciate this industry because I'm learning something every day from nearly everybody I meet. And so it's a growing industry. My background, originally I was the education director for outreach at NASA here in headquarters and at the Goddard for Earth Science Technology, and then did a PhD research for 5 years looking at mitigating risk, cost benefit analysis, where hospitals were burning out medical residents. As Julius knows, it's a patient safety issue of burnout and dysfunctional medical teams and nurses and all that. So and the economic drivers within our American system versus the hospitals they had in Kazakhstan and other countries, in Bosnia, different places. So they have actually better practices than we do. But with regards to multifamily apartments and looking at assisted living facilities and the sense of entrustment, responsibility, care for residents, I help various people or groups consider some of the components of how to serve the community with well-maintained facilities and also make it worthwhile for the investors.
That's fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much for that introduction, David. We appreciate your engagement and your participation in this meetup, and look forward to getting to know you better. Anybody else want to introduce themselves? I see some familiar faces. I see some new faces, or at least new avatars on there. I see Dr. Ronald Baker, the one and only Dr. Audley Mackel, I see Dr. Nkam. I see Marshall. Please unmute if you need to.
Julius, can you hear me? Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, so Melcy, I wanted to give you some quick feedback on getting deals. So one of the, maybe you can call me offline and I can give you guidance on some of the things you can do to try to get you the deal that you're looking for. That would work for you. But I think
that's awesome. That would be great. I think I think what he was trying to say, Melcy, is that he's more than available to help you with getting deals, and that he's more than happy to share a couple of gems with you. Strategies that's definitely worked for us at XSITE Capital. He's our director of acquisitions and one of our co-founders, and he's a wealth of knowledge. I think is that correct, Tenny? Just say yes.
Yes. Yes,
Anyways,
sir.
any other comments, please? Thank you for your question, Adam. Really appreciate it.
How do I get a hold of Tenny again? Sorry.
Oh, Tenny, please put your information in the chat, please. Thank you. We see, Jamila. Miss Miller, it's good to see you. I see Hope Famba. Thank you so much for joining us. This is great. Miles Hill. That's the excitable Miles Hills. I love it. Yeah, good to see you. And Nay Atafor, good to see you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think we got everybody. If there are no other comments, I'm gonna give about 1 more minute. If no one else has any comments, I'll give you about 18%. I mean, it's 18%, 18 minutes of your life back to go enjoy yourself. But just to let you know, XSITE Capital has another fantastic deal. And most of you already know this, but just in case you don't know, we have a deal in Atlanta, Georgia. Will be our first foray as lead sponsors in Georgia. And we are super excited about bringing this opportunity to our community of investors. The chat already has the landing page for the deal. Our webinar that we just completed will be going on that landing page very shortly. And you'll be able to review the investor deck and the information on the webinar. If you have any questions, please reach out to any one of us, including myself, Leslie, Tenny, or Braden, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. Once again, we thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today on this platform. You could be anywhere else in the world, but you're here with us. We don't take that for granted. We appreciate you dearly and look forward to seeing you again at this meetup and hopefully on one of these deals coming up. Oh, Ronald Baker is about to say something.
Hey, man.
Dr. Baker, how are you?
Well, actually, it's the other Dr. Baker who's here who had a question, who told me to ask a question, but I said to her, she was one before I was, so she can ask before me.
Got it.
Hi. I have
a
quick question. You know, we're in Snellville, Atlanta,
Mhm.
and the property is in Stone Mountain.
Yep.
Okay, what county? Because I always think I have 2 kids in school, so
Got it.
I'm thinking of the county as far as the school system.
Remind me what the county is again, Leslie?
DeKalb County. I live in Snellville, Georgia. This is Nay.
Oh, Nay, how are you?
Hey.
So the
Did
property
you
is
just-
in Cobb County, right, Nay?
No,
Yes,
DeKalb
they-
County.
they-
DeKalb.
DeKalb County.
The Cobb
Yeah,
County.
Yeah,
yeah.
DeKalb County. Yeah.
Nay actually visited the property when we did due diligence. So
Nay was kind enough to join us. Nay, did you have a good time on the due diligence?
Yes, I did. It was
Yeah.
an opportunity. I keep telling Leslie that I'm so grateful that he invited me. I am so grateful that I was there because I learned a lot. And ever since I've been attending these meetups, words cannot explain how much I've learned. I came like a blank slate, and I prepared myself like a sponge. I'm just ready to absorb as much as I can. So I wish to
Love
take
it.
this opportunity to thank you guys so much for the amazing things you're doing. And I'm definitely working on coming on board in one of the properties.
That's beautiful. We are so happy to hear that. We pride ourselves on our passion for educating our community of investors and our community at large, as much as we pride ourselves on recruiting those people in those communities to come on our deals. A mind grown
Julius.
or educate. Yes, sir. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so there was opportunity to view the property. Did you have a meetup recently?
Yeah, so we actually went in for due diligence on this property while we were in the process of putting it under contract. And just to make sure that the property is exactly what we thought it was, and that it was going to be a great opportunity for our community of investors. So we just we toured it. We went on the, I've had contractors on the roof, checking all the stairwells, checking every part of it, checking every unit to make sure that it was in the condition that we thought it was in, and just to get a sense of what we needed to do to get the property going. So, and we were very excited about what we saw.
And Dr. Baker, if that's something you're interested in on our next trip down to Atlanta, you're more than welcome to join us. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, please let me know. I'd love to come along. I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. Done.
I guess from our concern, from our standpoint, because we are new to the Atlanta area, been out here for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Well, not even that, but we extensively researched the schools in different areas.
Yeah.
And that was a big motivating factor for us choosing where we live in our part of Gwinnett County. We, because also I was covering, hospitals and things like that here too as well. But I'm trying to understand the rationale for DeKalb County versus other counties. Was it more of a price point, or you looked at the factors as far as the school systems that are associated with this particular property?
Got it.
Those kind of factors. How does that play out? I know you mentioned earlier the data points, the gentleman who was speaking, but how does that play a part?
This is a great question. I love it. I love it. So there are so many things that factor into the decision making when we are trying to choose these properties, right? One of those things, rightfully, as you mentioned, is the school system, right? But one of the other things that also factors in is just the basic economics of what is going on in Atlanta in general. A vast majority of people are getting priced out of all these other more desirable counties that you just mentioned.
Yes.
The counties that have essentially been maxed out, right? And if you look at all the other properties surrounding this property, you would realize that the occupancy rate is anything from 96% to close to 100%. Okay. So it's literally packed, filled with people who are already paying $1,500 per unit.
Okay.
Right? For these units that are filled up already. So, and given its proximity to Atlanta and to the employers and to the medical education corridor, people are finding that they can still come in and get a pretty large 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom for $1,500 instead of, and have their families live there, instead of having to live in the city and pay $2,500, $3,000 for the same thing, right? So that is what's happening here. And so the pure economics of this, the school systems aside, makes absolute sense. And when you actually look at like the properties that were sold around this property in the last year alone, they were sold anywhere from, I think, $140,000 per unit to $180,000 per unit. We're buying this at $124,000 per unit. So we're buying it with significant equity going in already. And if we, and I'm sure we will, implement our business plan as we expect and convert this from the old 1984 classic apartment that is a little bit dated to the nice, vibrant community that we know we can, because we just did that for the view. We know we are definitely going to hit a home run on this, but many things can happen. We like to underpromise and overdeliver, and we look forward to doing the same on this property. But very nice concerns, and I appreciate it for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Baker, Dr. Baker, was that was that an acceptable answer? And do you understand what I'm
Absolutely.
trying to say?
Absolutely. Thank you.
One of the powerful things that Dr. Oni mentioned is the opportunity for growth, because with multifamily, a single increase in income, like a single dollar increase in income, is a tremendous increase in value of appreciation. So one of the key things about this property is that gap, that delta for growth. Like looking at today's market where things are, we're looking at about $450 to $500 in rent delta. Now, if we're able to, where we come in and improve the property and able to increase that, we are increasing the value of that property significantly. One of the data sources that we look at to buy these deals is called RealPage, which is very conservative in his estimations of property values. Because the rent is growing up in this area significantly, RealPage is valuing the property as it is today at $23.5 million. And we're buying it for 17.856. So our work is to come in there and stabilize it and bring it up to standard to what's in the market, and the growth is there for the property. So that's one of our main motivating factors that's pushing us to buy this asset.
Awesome.
And Julius, you mentioned on the call the relationship.
Dr. Baker came on video. I was about to celebrate and you turned it off again.
Hey, Julius,
He
you had
didn't tell me
mentioned.
he was doing that.
Go ahead, please. Tenny, you were saying something. Oh, I hope we didn't forget you. We're getting to you very shortly.
Oh, I wanted to add, like Julius had mentioned, the relationship that made the transaction smooth. Just being the fact that we transacted with this seller in the past, knowing that we've performed on one of the assets that he gave to us to last year, March of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
He has seen what we've done on that asset, how we've transformed the asset. So when this property came online, he was like, well, this group, they've been doing a great job, so I can give it to them offline. So that's one of the reasons why we're buying it at a really good basis compared to a lot of the transaction that's occurring in the market already.
Yeah, we were able to get it off market. We didn't have to like bid with other folks to like to get it, because we had transacted with a fantastic gentleman selling it to us before, and he was very happy with what we've done, and now we've done business with him, and was more than happy to let this one go too. So super excited. Open to do this and do more. He's got 20,000 units. We could take about 7,000 units off his hands. We'll be very happy to do that.
Chairman, point of correction, 65,000.
He's got 65,000 units. Oh, pardon me. Okay, well, maybe we could take 10,000 units of his hands. Hope, please go ahead.
Hey, good evening, you all. Just taking this time to formally introduce myself. My name is, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Hope Fonback. I currently reside in Arizona, and just wanted to thank Leslie for bringing me on board. Behind the scene, I've been reading and just trying to follow up what is going on, see some of the past deals that you guys have done, and I'm ready to come on board, like I told Leslie, and we'll be meeting shortly, probably sometime next month, and get the process started. But it's nice to meet you all. I've seen the three of you, and Leslie's told me about you guys and everything from the genesis, and so I'm excited to join the fund and learn more about multifamily units.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Hope. We can't wait to have you on board and continue to grow all our minds and our wealth together. Thank you. Awesome. Any other comments? Awesome. Well, I think I was going to give you 18 minutes of your life back, but I guess I get to give you 6 minutes of your life back. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate you all. Look forward to seeing you on this deal. If not, look forward to seeing you at least at the next meetup. Thank you.
Thank you very
everybody.
much. Good
Good night,
night.
everyone.
Good night.